All right, guys. So John Fetterman is currently in the midst of his pick-me phase where, you know, he's desperately trying to get the support of right-wingers and MAGA and say, look at me. I'm one of the good ones. I'm not one of those liberals or lefties that disagrees with you. I tell you, you're right about everything. So he did an interview with ABC's This Week. Let's watch, and I'll have a lot to say about it.
I met up with Senator Fetterman to discuss how he views his role as Donald Trump returns to Washington.
So are you going to be Donald Trump's favorite Democrat in the Senate?
I don't know what that really means because you never know. But what I am is I'm just a regular Democrat. I'm not leaving my party, but I'm not sure why some of the things that I've chosen to do, like meeting with nominees and having views that might be more aligned with some of the Republican side, I think that's part of politics. And that's pretty much consistent with just doing the job and representing the kind of state that we have in Pennsylvania.
I'm not even going to say anything yet. I'll try to reel myself in.
Looking forward, what are you most optimistic about with a Trump presidency, and what do you fear?
Well, it's like I've been warning people, like, you got to chill out. You know, like the constant, freak out. It's not helpful. So, pack a lunch, pace yourself, because he hasn't even taken office yet.
In other words, when Trump says something absurd, when they float a policy that's bad, don't react to it. Don't counter it. Don't disagree and explain why. Just shut up and take it. This is the argument. This is what he's saying. And, look, if I'm trying to steelman his case, he would say, well, because we did that in 2016, we would flip out at every little thing he said or did, and that didn't work. That actually put us in a worse position. But I would respond to that by saying, you're actually fucking dead wrong, John Fetterman, because 2020, Joe Biden won. Now, you could point to a number of different factors that led to that, but the idea that making a counter-argument to Trump is inherently something that's questionable or bad or nefarious or will backfire. No. By the way, notice everything's sort of like a game. He talks about this like it's a game, right? And it's not. Like real policy changes are on the line, and people's well-being, it's on the line. And he's acting like, hey, man, just like chill out, bro. Chill out, dog.
Do you think he has the potential to be a successful and a good president?
I hope, because I'm not rooting against him. If you're rooting against the president, you are rooting against the nation.
That's such fucking bullshit. Holy shit. Dude, he is... Okay, let me explain this as simply as I can. The reason why it makes sense to root against Trump is because the agenda that he says he wants to do, those things are all bad things. So just to put it in perspective, when Trump was in there last time, his number one legislative accomplishment was massive tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations where 83% of the benefits went to the top 1%. Do I want that to fail? You bet your ass I want that to fail. I want Democrats to block it. I want to make sure we don't get more tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations. That's the last thing this country needs. We need to do the opposite. We need to raise taxes on the wealthy and corporations. Why would I sit there and say, I hope President Trump succeeds in doing something that is objectively horrible for the country? When Trump was in there last time, we lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs. Do I want him to fail? Yeah, because I don't want to lose any more manufacturing jobs. He presided over a net loss of 2.9 million jobs. Yeah, do I want him to fail, his agenda to fail? Yeah, because we'll probably lose more jobs if we get his policies in place. What about the 2.3 million people that lost health insurance under him? Yeah, I want him to fail because if he does what he did last time, that's another 2.3 million people that lose their health insurance. He appointed more billionaires and Wall Street CEOs than any other administration in history. Yes, I don't want him to do that. So, like, when we say, oh, we want him to succeed, or he says, oh, yeah, I want him to succeed. What does that mean? If he succeeds at doing the agenda that he says he supports, or succeeds at doing what he did last time, that is bad for the country. That is not good for the country. Again, I guess if I'm trying to steelman it, if he does, I want him to succeed in the sense that he does good things for the country, right? But this is why ideology matters. In fact, ideology and policy is everything. Because the things that Trump thinks are good for the country are not. They are objectively horrible for the country. And that matters. And you need to point out that distinction. It's like he's in the opposition and he's not trying to be in the opposition. It's like, okay, well then just join MAGA. Just leave the Democratic Party. Just do that. Oh my God.
I'm not ever going to be where I want a president to fail. So country first. I know it's become maybe like a cliche, but it happens to be true.
What was the single biggest factor behind Kamala Harris and Democrats losing in November?
You have a singular political talent. It's undeniable.
Trump.
You know, he had the energy and almost a sense of fearlessness to just say all those kinds of things. And people, it's undeniable that it has an entertaining aspect for that too. And just if you're not afraid to say all of those things, and after
What things, John? What things?
You survived an assassination, you literally were shot in your head, and had the presence of mind to respond. You know, fight, fight, fight. I mean, that's a political talent. It's undeniable. And also, I never believed that it was about fascism. And for me, that made it difficult for
Kamala Harris said that he was a fascist.
Yeah, well, it's like that's her prerogative. I mean, but it's not a word that I would use, because you put a lot of Democrats, especially in my state, that I know and I happen to love, people that are going to vote for Trump, and they are not fascist.
Oh my God. He did a total bait and switch there. Calling Trump a fascist does not mean that literally all of his supporters are fascists. That's not what that means. Calling Trump a fascist is calling Trump a fascist. And why would you call him a fascist? Because of the things he says he supports. If any other presidential candidate or president in U.S. history ever said, we want to completely eliminate or terminate the Constitution, all rules, articles, and regulations in the Constitution to get me back in office, even though I lost the last election, if any other president said that, everybody would agree. It'd be consensus across the board, Democrats, Republicans, centrists, you name it. Everybody would say, yeah, that person is unfit for the office. Because that is objectively, even if I want to soften it as much as possible, that is deeply authoritarian. But I do think the F word is appropriate, fascist. If anybody else said that, everybody would be honest about it. Everybody would be honest about it. But in this instance, people are not willing to be honest about it. One of the things Trump kept saying on the campaign trail is, I want to use the military to go after my political opponents. This is one of the things he said on a regular basis on the campaign trail. If you don't call that fascist, then nothing is fascist. Then nothing's fascist. So for the life of me, I don't understand how you could just overlook all that stuff and pretend like that stuff's not real. Or even like whatever, try to put a positive spin on that stuff. There is no positive spin you could put on this. He tried to invoke the Insurrection Act the last time he was in office. Invoke the Insurrection Act, and he was telling his generals, let's just shoot people in the leg. Let's shoot protesters in the leg. So using the U.S. military on our own streets to go after people who disagree with him, who are protesting and exercising their First Amendment rights, and he says, arrest them and shoot them in the leg. How is that not fascist? Look, the thing that drives me crazy about what's become of our politics, and maybe it was always like this to one extent or another, but like, we are so vibes heavy that people can't see straight, and people do not put policy in the forefront. And that is devastating for a nation, because in order for a democracy to work, you need people to be educated about the reality of the situation. And we just simply don't have that. And what Fetterman is doing here is he's riding the wave. He's riding the vibes of Trumpism, and he's trying to dip his toe in the water and say, hey man, I may be a Democrat, but I'm reasonable. I'll give credit where credit is due. I'll say when my party goes too far and liberals and leftists go too far, but it's not too far to say he's a fascist. It's not too far to say he's an authoritarian. Look, if you want to say, hey, for historical reasons, I don't want to use the F word because it's linked to Nazi Germany, and I think that goes too far to make that comparison, I can understand that perspective. But if you say he's not authoritarian, you're just lying. So, for example, on issues of the First Amendment and free speech, he threatened to de-license news outlets that criticize him. He wants to punish flag burning with a year in jail, which is directly against the First Amendment, as interpreted by the Supreme Court. We've already had cases over this. He sued CNN for $475 million for calling election denialism the big lie. He sued Bill Maher for $5 million over a joke. He supports opening up the libel laws to sue journalists. He called for jailing journalists who reported on the Supreme Court abortion ruling. He wants to deport pro-Palestine protesters. He gag-ordered workers at the EPA from telling people the truth about climate change. He arrested and charged 6 journalists with felony rioting. He didn't pardon Julian Assange. He didn't pardon Edward Snowden. He didn't pardon Daniel Hale. And John Fetterman either doesn't know about these things or knows about some of these things and still would say that's somehow not fascist. If it was any other candidate not named Donald Trump, everybody would say, yes, that's fascist. It is just so dishonest. Holy shit.
And also fascism. That's not a word that regular people, use. That,
Oh my God. This is the bigotry of low expectations. That's what this is. It's assuming the American voter doesn't have some like bare minimum politics 101 knowledge. Most people know what a fascist is. Most people know what a fascist is. Or they're in the ballpark of the correct definition of fascist, right? Like, Jesus Christ. What the fuck?
I think people are going to decide who is the candidate that's going to protect and project, my version of the American way of life. And that's what happened.
I talked to a lot of Democrats before the election who were saying, we're going to win, Harris is going to win in Pennsylvania. But you saw this coming.
If you live in Pennsylvania and you spend time in Red County, Pennsylvania, as much as I did, the support's astonishing. I mean, I was driving home from Indiana County at 9 o'clock, and there was a Trump superstore on the side of a road. 9 o'clock on Friday night, and people are buying swag. And then that really crystallized at the assassination. And that was in Butler County, Western Pennsylvania, fairly close to where I live. And the day or two later, you start seeing people wearing shirts with that iconic picture, and the energy and the anger, and it's like, wow, I really thought. In fact, I thought that might be ball game, and then the second thing really, and that's when Musk and I, we're in the business. Surrogacy is part of it, and sometimes it really has much of an impact. But I knew that was going to be a special one. And
the endorsement by Elon Musk.
Yeah. Well, an endorsement and an active one. And I'm not even talking about his checkbook.
Could you imagine somebody saying, if George Soros is palling around the country with Joe Biden, giving speeches at his events, bragging about giving hundreds of millions of dollars to him, on the phone, as Biden talks to foreign leaders, George Soros is on the phone with him, helping steer the direction of policy. Is this how people would talk about it? Oh, man, this is a real political benefit to have this billionaire oligarch on the call, robber baron on the call, helping to steer U.S. policy. No, everybody would say, as a matter of principle, that is unacceptable. We're a democracy. We're not supposed to be an oligarchy. But somehow, with Trump and Musk, he gets away with it. Oh, it's a nice little benefit. It's a nice little plus on the campaign trail to have this guy join your team. Are you kidding me? John Fetterman, is it not your job as a Democrat to, instead of surfing the wave, surfing the vibe of Trump winning the Electoral College, to explain to people, hey, here's why that's actually not such a good thing. Here's why, look, I understand that you're excited about it. I understand that there are a lot of people who support Trump a lot. Here's why you shouldn't. Here's why he's a fraud. But no, he's surfing the wave. This is embarrassing. This is what politics looks like when you have zero convictions. Zero convictions, zero ideological core. It's just finger in the wind. Where are the trends going? I'm going to try to chase the trend.
Do you think he would have won without Elon Musk?
Well, I'm not sure if we would have lost Bob Casey, but I do think Trump, it would have been closer. I really believe that it mattered. We lost Bob Casey for 15,000 votes. And I'm sure he did move the needle. It's undeniable.
How would you grade the Trump transition?
Oh, I mean, it's not really a grade, but I'm saying this as a Democrat.
This guy's still not all there anymore, is he? How would you grade the Trump transition? Well, it's not a grade. No, he's asking you to grade it. Give a grade. A, B, C, D. Like, just give something. Oh, my God.
It's like, I clearly, after he announced Gates, and I'm like, that's just... I described that. That's God-tier trolling. I mean, that was never serious. And anyone here in Congress knows that he's despised by Republicans, too. So that also set the stage, and here's what's coming. And now I have met with all of them so far, and the ones that we haven't.
His nominees.
They're on the schedule back in January.
You met with Pete Hegseth?
I did, yeah.
You think he's qualified to be defense secretary?
Well, I think we're going to learn more. And that hearing, and there's going to be an FBI background and that. But, my commitment, and I think I'm doing the job, is I'm going to sit down and have a conversation. And the president picked these people, not going to be my first choice, second choice, third choice. But that's democracy. And to me, it would be distressing if he is confirmed, if the Democrats are going to turn our back collectively to the leader of the defense. I mean, that's astonishing.
This is really disgusting, what he's doing here. He's trying to act like, well, the absurd thing, the insane thing, the crazy thing is Democrats who don't meet with Pete Hegseth to at least have a conversation about whether or not he can be defense secretary. John, Pete Hegseth is a Fox News host who doesn't believe in germ theory. He said repeatedly that we should do a preemptive strike on North Korea, his introduction in politics was creating a pro-Iraq war group where he lobbied in favor of the war. He's the reason that Trump pardoned Blackwater war criminals who did the Nisour Square massacre and killed civilians in broad daylight. You can go on and on with the horrifically terrible beliefs of this man. Just a massive, colossal warmonger and a giant idiot. So for you to say, look, I don't really want to meet with him, that would be Democrats reading the news, understanding this guy's positions and what he's known for, and saying, sorry, that's way out of bounds. I'm not remotely interested in it. Right? And by the way, like, now is the time, John, to have the conversation. Wait a second. Trump sometimes would say anti-war stuff on the campaign trail, and now he's picking all these neocon warmongers to be in his administration. Why wouldn't you say, look, you want me to meet with your pick for defense secretary? That's totally fine. Here's my precondition. You have to pick somebody, anybody, from either a libertarian think tank or a paleo-conservative think tank, because libertarians are more non-interventionist and paleo-conservatives are more non-interventionist. So this is an opportunity for you to say, look, Don, if you're actually anti-war, you were attacking Liz Cheney and Kamala as the pro-war candidate, so that implies you're the anti-war candidate. Well, if you want to walk the walk and not just talk the talk, pick anybody from a paleo-conservative think tank or a libertarian think tank, and not only will I meet with that person, there's a decent chance I actually will vote for that person. You could use this as an opportunity to show that Trump's actually pro-war. He's not anti-war. And instead of doing that, you're castigating and berating your Democratic colleagues who don't want to meet with Pete Hegseth. This is disgusting. This man is such a colossal fraud. He believes in nothing.
So you see yourself inclined to be open to supporting these controversial nominees. You might not support them all, but you see yourself...
Potentially.
Yeah.
But there is going to be some that I will vote yes. And there's some maybe that I'll vote no. But nobody can accuse me of just saying I had a closed mind.
Hey, John, what if sometimes a closed mind is necessary? What if sometimes a closed mind is correct? That a pick can be so insane and outside of that which is acceptable that the correct reaction is to say, get out of here with that nonsense. This is the thing. Like, this is how Democrats function, right? Democrats are, let's be bipartisan and meet in the middle, and let's be reasonable and understanding and come to an agreement. This is always the bipartisan instinct. What's the Republican instinct? No. Go fuck yourself. We do what we want, and we're against everything you do. When are you going to get with the times? When are you going to grow? They're never going to grow. They're never going to grow, because this is the Democratic brand. It is cuckoldry. That's what it is.
Said no because Trump picked this person or whatever.
I saw you, Elise Stefanik, you have said you're going to vote for her. I saw you with her thumbs up.
Yeah, well, and Rubio. For me, it's like, Rubio, for me, it's like he's in the other party, obviously. But, there's a lot of, the Venn is closer. There's a lot of overlap.
Neocon warmonger. This guy's a neocon warmonger. Marco Rubio is going to destroy Latin America. There's not a country in Latin America he didn't want to overthrow, right? There's a guy who wants war with Iran desperately. And he's like, yeah, I'm voting for Rubio. Elise Stefanik. The reason why he supports Elise Stefanik is because Elise Stefanik did the anti-First Amendment crusade to crack down on pro-Palestine protesters on college campuses. She wanted to get teachers fired. She wanted to get the leadership and management at the colleges. She wanted to get them fired, like the principals and whatnot, and the people who run the campus, fire them. She agrees with Trump to deport pro-Palestine protesters or lock them up or bust up any sort of pro-Palestine movement. This is why he supports her. He's rabidly pro-Israel and their genocide, and so is Elise Stefanik, and that's why he's supporting Elise Stefanik. This guy's not a Democrat. This is a Democrat in name only. This is like, you're just MAGA. Like, you're just MAGA. You're just being a Republican as you pretend like you're not.
And now, if I was, as a Democrat, looking to assemble a bipartisan cabinet, he'd be a solid choice, from a Democrat.
He's saying that even under a Democratic administration, you could pick Marco Rubio to be Secretary of State. Okay. We are so cooked as a country, bro. We are so cooked.
Met with Kash Patel, I believe, right?
Yesterday, well, yes.
He's talked about going after Trump's enemies.
Yeah, and we've had conversations, but we had all of these interviews were all off the record and those things. So I'm not going to go into detail, but he absolutely that's never going to happen. You know, like he was very.
He's not going to use the FBI to go after Trump's enemies.
Like, no, that's not it. Or
did you believe him?
Taken.
I mean, he's written a lot.
Like that's what he claims.
Yeah.
And I found out, you know, his family's origin story and immigration, and we talked about that. And my family, immigration and things. And so I learned things about him. I never knew that he was a public defender.
Oh my God, Kash Patel has said roughly 14,000 times in public that he's gonna basically deliver Trump's retribution and revenge and vengeance. And he's going to go after Trump's political opponents. And John Fetterman's like, well, he told me he wasn't going to do that. This is like, you're at the level, like, do you have issues with object permanence? Like, I mean, this is laughable. And, we talked about immigration, because, like, his family had some immigrants, Fetterman's family had some immigrants. Okay, so wait, now all of a sudden immigration is good again when 4.5 minutes ago you had flipped and become anti-immigrant to ride the Trump wave? So you were pro-immigration before when you ran for office, then you became anti-immigration riding the Trump wave, and now in a conversation with Kash Patel, all of a sudden you're pro-immigration again? Like, there's nothing at the core of this man. This man is a black void of principles and convictions.
You come across liking Kash Patel more than you thought you would, thinking you could support him?
I mean, how much you can absorb in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But I have learned things, and I have heard things, and I have no regrets for having these. I never left any of those interviews saying, wow, that was a waste of time, or I regret that.
Yeah, that's the problem, John. That's the problem. Is you're such a fucking sucker. You're such a Weasley wave-riding freak that, we had a conversation, and the conversation was a conversation, and some things were okay that we said. Like, just a sucker. He wants to be a sucker, right? He wants to be a sucker. He wants to be a MAGA Democrat.
Since the election?
I have not. I have not, no.
So I assume he's going to call you at some point. What is your message to him after he sees this?
What would I say to him? I'd be like, well, hey, congratulations, and have an honest conversations of things I would like to, we could work together, and some things we're going to disagree. I'd like to avoid the cheap heat and some of the other stuff, but it's going to be a kooky ride, I'm sure. And I try to be a committed, steady voice for Pennsylvania, and to remember that we have to find as many wins in the middle of an incredibly divisive times.
They're all bending the knee. Every last one of them is going to bend the knee to one extent or another. This is pathetic. This is how you create a political dynasty and era, right? When everybody just sort of capitulates to, I guess this is how it is. I guess we got to go in this direction. It happened with Reagan. It happened with FDR, but that was actually good because he was a Democrat and he was a social Democrat and he went after the wealthy and the elites and did the New Deal. So you had a New Deal era because everybody finally capitulated like, okay, I guess this is what people want. Even the Republicans started acting more like Democrats in that era. Then it happened in the Reagan era in the other direction with neoliberalism and cutting taxes for the wealthy and interventionism, overseas war, right? The U.S. empire sort of leading the world. And then, I mean, since it's been the same since Reagan, and now we're going to go from a right-wing era to another right-wing era, just this time more authoritarian in the Trump era. Because you're already seeing Democrats, to one extent or another, bending the knee, not resisting, not proposing a counter-ideological vision. And if that's the case, we are in for a very, very dark period here, man. Because he was not unclear with what he wants to do with this country. Trump wants more war, more tax cuts for the rich, more deregulation, let the corporations do whatever they want, let the billionaires do whatever they want, more genocide in Gaza, authoritarianism at home, going after, the enemy within, and you have with Democrats like this, who needs Republicans, right? I mean, this guy, he's just a Republican with the label of Democrat, and it's all hold hands, sing kumbaya, let's find areas where we agree, let's be reasonable and meet with their psycho picks. This is the last thing we need. The last thing we need. You're already looking at the next Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. You're already looking at that, and it may go further. He may eventually become a Republican. That's the trajectory that he's on. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.